Welcome to the Caribbean Property Investing Podcast, where we share real-life experiences for successful Caribbean property entrepreneurs. Learn about their successes, challenges, and strategies to help you create your plan for financial freedom. Now let's get started.
Bank of St. Lucia Visa credit card for everyday people, everyday moments.
To ruminate, to create your ultimate living space. And at Courts, you'll find what you need. Choose from our wide range of furniture, electronics, and accessories to complete your space. We're here and ready to assist. Give us a call to place your order. Shop online at shopcourts.com or visit us in store. So ruminate at Courts, bringing value home.
Welcome to episode 28 of the Caribbean Property Investing Podcast. We want to thank you for your support, for your interest, for your questions, for sharing. It took us all of 28 episodes to get the following guests, a most distinguished lady. I have so much admiration for her. I met her a very, very long time ago. Actually, we were in school together in a different country. And you'll hear all about it. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to welcome Miss Tracy Polius to the show. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you, Anselm. Thank you, everyone.
Tracy, it's actually Tracy. So, Tracy, why don't you give the audience, our listeners, a little bit of a background on yourself?
I am Tracy Polius, and I'm from Babonneau. I am a daughter to Anthony Loctor and Lucia Loctor of Babonneau. I am from a family of 5. I have lived Babonneau for my whole life. I am married with 3 boys, 3 handsome boys, age ranging from 12 to 19. And I am a quantity surveyor by profession and also an arbitrator.
You're also president of the Institute of Surveyors St. Lucia. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your educational background and then, how you started your world of work, where you started?
Well, I started from the Corinth Junior Sec. Actually, I was one of the first set to move on to Senior Sec, Leon Hess Comprehensive, and the first set to graduate. Upon graduating from Leon Hess, I pursued a few courses at Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. I pursued a few courses because my father felt that I needed to practice. I needed to go out on the field to achieve my goal. And for this reason, he got in touch with Leroy John, who was an architect at the time. And actually, my goal was always to be an estimator or an architect. So this is why my father led me to that direction. I remained with Leroy John for a few years. And after completing my course at Sir Arthur, I got a job with Mr. Lindell Gordon and Bellis Partners, where I learned so much in engineering. Based on that knowledge, well, I can say these 2 people, Leroy John and Mr. Lindell Gordon, were the ones who really inspired me. They really were my mentors, apart from my dad. They were my mentors, and I was able to. I got through with CAS at the time. It was UTECH, sorry, CAS, which changed to UTECH. A year after. I pursued a course in structural engineering, a diploma in structural engineering, where I mastered it as usual. Sorry. I topped the course, and after leaving UTECH Jamaica, I went back to work with Mr. Lindell Gordon for a few years, and I thought, well, I needed to move on, and got a job with HUDC, where I spent 10 years. After 10 years, I decided enough was enough. I needed to move on to a next level. I pursued a course with a bachelor's degree with London Southbank University, where I got a first class honors degree in quantity surveying. Afterwards, I went back to St. Lucia. I worked with NHC for a while, and I did resign after a while because it became very frustrating. I needed to move on again. And I was offered a job with CO Williams Construction Limited, where I am still working. Well, actually, it was CO Williams, but after 4 years, I have been working with both St. Lucia and Antigua. I'm the quantity surveyor, and my role is to do cost management, do all estimates on infrastructure, and I love it. So this is really what I can say about me, considering the time limit.
While I listened to the journey, I couldn't help but think. Did you do you think that you were in an advantageous position because you had the experience actually before going to UTECH, University of Technology or School of Architecture in Jamaica, and because of your time with Gordon, the Gordon firm, almost like when you went to the theory part of it was not as challenging for you?
It was easy, very easy. I had no difficulty with the program. I mastered it, and that was my whole aim, to master it. The thing about it is mentoring is very important, and this is what we need to practice or implement in St. Lucia, mentoring. I was mentored, like I said, first by my father. Oh, I forgot to say my uncles who were contractors. So I was really
Oh.
influenced by them as well. And then my dad, who was a heavy equipment operator, actually he worked with the same CEO Williams. So I knew all about that. The things that he used to say to me after work, it was, I had this interest in construction because of all of them. And then working with Leroy John with all the architectural drawings. At the time, there was nothing such draft person and architect. Everybody was considered an architect. So I was really pleased to be working with him, and I learned so much. I mean, I can produce a drawing, I can produce any house drawing right now. And working with Mr. Gordon, I was able to do more details. For instance, a structural drawing, I was always interested in structural drawing and like producing a drawing showing every single reinforcement on the floor. I used to enjoy doing it, and Mr. Gordon gave me the push, and he really helped me. Actually, he died a few years, this year, and anyway, I never got the chance to really tell him how much he helped me, but he knew.
Oh, but I knew him more as a photographer, I guess, in his retirement, in his the retirement phase of his life. But just I'm now really understanding why your father really pushed you to get that experience, because they were already in the field. Now, before we go on to the other area, you have to allow me to ask this question. Your other siblings, was the interest in getting them into the field just as much as yourself for your father?
Well, I guess everyone is different. My father would talk to all of us, but there's a saying that daughters are closer to the dad. I used to wait up for my dad and wait for him to eat with him and listen to what he had to say for the day, what happened for the day. So I guess I I became closer to him because he realized that I had interest in what he or in his work. So I guess this is why I am the way I am right now. I've always loved it from him.
In terms of the area of quantity surveying, Tracy, why don't you tell us more about the field and the area?
Quantity surveyors are responsible for cost management on construction projects. What they do they start from the time, okay, the designer, someone designs a structure. Before, if this person wants to go to a bank or they would like to implement this work, what they do, they would likely go to a quantity surveyor for a cost. The cost of this structure, for instance, if it is say a road and the ministry wants the cost of the road, they would have a quantity surveyor to price the road, how much it costs to build the road. Building the road would be like the cost of material and the cost of labor. So what this quantity surveyor would do is itemize each activity which would allow you to construct this road. For instance, if you were to excavate or reclaim, dispose material, probably lay asphalt, mark the road, the quantity surveyor can give this price. I gave you a simple example, but okay, let me make it a little more complicated, but at the same time to explain the extent of our work. For a bridge, a construction of a bridge, a quantity surveyor would price the construction of this bridge, ensuring that they pick up every activity which would allow the person to construct this bridge. Also, what they would do is they can assist this client to prepare tenders so that a contractor can build this bridge. Apart from the tenders, they can do evaluation of the see if like 3 contractors were given to price the bid, they would compare, do comparison on whatever costings they receive from the contractor, and they will compare it to the price that the quantity surveyor prepared. So after this has been done in terms of the tendering process, this same quantity surveyor can prepare a report, an evaluation report, recommending which contractor has given the most economical price. And not economical, you have to think about also whether this person is capable of constructing this bridge. The next stage would be the implementation. The implementation would be the actual construction of the bridge. The involvement of this quantity surveyor would be to manage the cost during the construction. For instance, whilst the work is being carried out, this quantity surveyor would either certify the claim, submitted by the contractor or prepare the claim for the contractor. Well, I'm differentiating the two. You might have a quantity surveyor for the contractor, or there might be a quantity surveyor for the client. So
Right.
when the contractor submits a claim, the quantity surveyor for the client certifies the claim so that the contractor could be paid on a monthly basis. So upon completion of that stage where the project is complete, this quantity surveyor would have to prepare a final cost. The client's quantity surveyor will have to prepare a final account along with the other quantity surveyor, the contractor quantity surveyor, to get a final cost of the project. So it shows that the quantity surveyor is used from the inception to the end of the project.
Tracy, I want us to pivot here because I know some of our audience right now is saying, okay, it's good to know about the bridge, but tell me about my house. Tell me about my property, because this is why I'm listening to the podcast. So for us,
Okay.
property developers and persons who would have built a home or building, you need a quantity surveyor report or QS report or QS estimate for the bank. All that's part of the application process. Typically, we have to pay for that. In terms of percentage, of course, I'm not quite sure, but it's in the region of anywhere from 500 to 1,000 US, roughly for a construction project under $1 million. So about, let's say 1,000 US is a safe price for that original QS report. Maybe that's discounted. And typically in there, you would have every part of the building from excavation to construction to finishing to clean at the end. What is it you think are the key points or areas that someone building a house, our core audience, what do they need to know from the residential QS rule, from your point of view?
Well, I am the president of the Institute of Surveyors St. Lucia, and I represent all surveyors in St. Lucia. As it pertains to where one goes to a bank for probably the construction of a house, take a loan for construction of a house, there are various stages which requires the service of several surveyors. Once the building, the design has been approved by the necessary authorities, which is DCA, what would happen is the client would have this approved plan and probably go to the bank for a loan. What happens here is that this client goes to the bank and the bank would request a valuation done. The bank would also request an estimate. Now, there's a difference.
Yeah.
The valuation of the property where this person will construct this building, they need this for security purposes. So, this requires a valuation surveyor. This surveyor visits the site to examine the surrounding in order to come up with a value for the property. Now, when I said the surrounding, your property would have a value based on your surrounding, based on what exists on the property. For instance, you might have a vacant property which may have a value based on what the adjoining property's value is. For instance, if the house next to your structure or the area, based on historical data, shows that the value is $8. This valuation surveyor will capture that information from the registry, the land registry, where they compile comparables to come up with a value for your property. Apart from this valuation surveyor would do other things, but I will not discuss it. We making reference to only houses. So upon completion of this task by the valuation surveyor to value the house based on whether it is not a house, sorry, the property, based on the information from registry, a report is prepared by this valuation surveyor and submitted to the. Now the bank would also request a quotation for the proposed house. Now, the proposed house would be, say, for instance, a concrete house, a two-story house or whatever. This service can be provided by a quantity surveyor. The quantity surveyor will use the approved plan and come up with a price for constructing this building. This will be submitted to the bank. Now, the problem is, I may say that the bank will give this information to a valuation surveyor or quantity surveyor. But sometimes the bank has a list of names. They may just choose someone who they believe who can do both, or probably split, either get two persons to provide the services, right? Once this is complete, the banker would probably look at the value of the property to see whether it can be used as security for the house. They have the criteria, and based on it, whether you get through. If you do get through, the next step would be to get a contractor who can construct the building. Normally, the norm is that the client would source a contractor. But the problem is, okay, the client will source this contractor and they may get a friend to do it, or they may have a friend who knows a friend who has a contractor. This is not our world, our St. Lucia market. It's
Caribbean, Caribbean.
honestly, this is one of the issues we have in St. Lucia. But anyway, it's always wise for this person to get a contractor who is competent, who's going to provide, give you value for money. And there is a term, cowboy contractor. Don't get somebody who's a cowboy contractor.
The problem with
Ensure
that,
that this
Tracy,
person,
the problem with that is that most times we don't know we're getting a cowboy contractor. We think we're getting a good deal. It's only after you deep in you realize that perhaps you made the wrong choice. And it's always said, and we've said this on the podcast before, your home or your investment property you're going to be building will be perhaps the biggest investment that you make in your lifetime. So they always recommend that you do it right. You have multiple quotes, at least two, but ideally it's three. And if you haven't issued the budget, then you may have to modify your plans. Because remember what we said, you do not start off with the plan first or the design. You start with the budget in mind and then you work backwards. So that's for cowboy contractors. Let's assume that you do exactly what you said. You don't choose a contractor based on friendship, but based on competence. Continue.
okay, once you have someone who is able to construct your building, the next thing I would advise a client to do is to get a land surveyor. The purpose of the land surveyor is to raise the boundary pegs. There are so many cases in St. Lucia where persons build or encroach on other property. And this is because they do not get a land surveyor to raise the pegs, and they would build on somebody's property rather than theirs, or probably build half of the building on somebody's property. So I would
Tracy,
advise the client.
let me say something. Make no mistake, it is the obligation of the seller, the person that you are purchasing the property from. It's their responsibility to raise the pegs for you before you purchase. And by raising the pegs, that's an expression we use in St. Lucia, it means clearly demarcating the boundary lines. Every survey plan, every lot should have clearly visible marked boundaries. Typically, they are in the form of a piece of steel, and you have a piece of concrete to cast it. And and in the surveying process, they normally tie it with an orange or a yellow ribbon. So it's the obligation of the vendor, listeners. They must show you all of the pegs, the boundary lines, the boundary markers before you agree to purchase the property. And only after that, you must verify with the land register that this survey plan is valid, is active. There obviously will be or should be no liens on it. And only after you have clearly demarcated that area by the vendor do you then start your construction. Sorry, Tracy, continue.
Well, there are other scenarios where you'd find someone may construct on, they get permission to build on a lot, and probably someone pass it on to them, so they may need a surveyor to raise the peg. Okay, the other reason why it is necessary is when the contractor is setting out the building, it's always wise for the contractor to know where those pegs are, because setting out the building would mean you putting in the profile so that you would get the shape of the building. If you do not know where the boundary pegs are, how can you set out? You need to be sure, because like you rightly said, building a house is an investment, and always try to avoid litigation or any dispute when it pertains to learn from the beginning, from when you start building, not afterwards. So it is important that persons ensure that they know where the contractors have to ensure that they know where the boundary pegs are before they construct for anyone.
Tracy, I have a question for you. While we go through this process, I'm just thinking we jumped the gun. You were very clear in requesting from our listeners that they be very careful and vigilant about choosing a contractor. But you never told us what quality should we look for in choosing a surveyor, a quantity surveyor. What do we look for? So they may have 10 surveyors. What do you think are maybe three things we need to look for in choosing the right quantity surveyor for us?
Well, there are just a few quantity surveyors. We have, the Institute, we have a list of surveyors, which, if one wants to know a reliable, quantity surveyor, they can choose one on our list, as well as the banks. The banks have their own list. And the banks would select normally the banks would select their own surveyors based on the list. The banks would allow or request that the clients go to whoever they select on the list.
So you have no say.
So, the banks they operate like, I would say they have their own list, and they would tend to choose their own.
So if you're a QS and you're not on a bank's list, how do you get on the bank's list?
That's a very good question. And this is what well, as a president, this is what we are trying our best to work on, or we have been working on. The banks tend to feel comfortable with who they wish. I'm not sure of the criteria, but they tend to select their own. What we would do normally would furnish them with a list of quantity surveyors, well, the list of the members, our surveyors, would provide them with a list. But from this list, they will not select everyone. They will just select a few. And also, they would probably rotate. I'm not sure how they do it because our our members tend to complain about it. Not all of our members get an opportunity to work for the bank. There are cases where, say for instance, you have a mother, your mother may want to build a house and she goes to the bank. There are times, if like you are a quantity surveyor and probably you may not want to do it, but probably refer well, probably recommend of one of your colleagues who is a quantity surveyor to do it at a reduced price. The bank would not accept it. The bank chooses whoever they wish.
Okay. I leave that advocacy for the president of the Institute of Surveyors. Let's shift gears and let's talk about your business. Tell us about your property journey. How did you start? So you've come from school, you worked before and after. You now have C.O. Williams. So tell us about your first property project.
Well, my first property project was when I purchased a lot at Mornier. I constructed a two-story building on the property. But then again, my parents my parents did not want me to be away from them. So I built up the property on my own. I had workers, masons. I hired masons, laborers, and I managed the project on my own. And I sold it and moved to, well, I was actually at the time living at Babono, and I sold the property and invested it in a used building
Pause,
and
pause,
renovated.
pause right there. Pause right there. Our listeners want to understand a little more. So when you decided to, one, buy the lot money, and two, build a multi-story property, tell us what was the thinking. Why did you build multi-story property? Why did you choose money? And from what you said, you intended to live in it or rent it, and only after your parents decided that they wanted you to live with them did you sell it. What was the thinking? Just try to explain the thinking to our audience.
Well, to be honest, I've always had this business mind to, this real estate mind to build and sell. So my first house, my intention was to live in it for about a year or two and gain, well, I was hoping that the value would be higher and then sell. But based on my parents' situation, and also I got an offer. So I did not refuse it. I sold the house.
You got an offer before
Now,
before you finish building. Before you finish building, you
well,
got an offer.
when I was about to move in, I got the offer and I sold it. And I said, okay, I'll buy the second-hand house, which was not second, the used house, sorry, which was actually a home which mattered. And then I will say it out loud. This same house was used as a mortgage for my school in Jamaica. And I stayed in this house. So I decided it was supposed to be my father's retirement plan. So I said, you know what? I will buy that house and make my father happy. I purchased the house from my dad, and my intention was to renovate it again and sell. But it has,
Did your father know that?
my father knows his daughter. He knows how I think because I purchased a lot next to it so that I would build, well, next to my father's home, so that I could build a house, sell this property, and build another one next to him. I should have done it the other way around. But anyway, it never happened. It never happened simply because of my parents. They wanted me right there. So and my husband, my children love the house, and it's been difficult for them to, well, if it's up to me, I would sell it like now. Well, not now. You won't get the value for it.
So
So,
Tracy, during this transaction, I realized that the house was a commodity for you. There was never an emotional connection to the house. It was just a tool for economic gain. Do you find that common with women or people your age?
well, I would say it has sentimental value now. This is why it's been difficult for me to give up. Well, not, well, I would give it up, but then at the same time, I'm always in doubt because this is what I used from day one to where I am now. It has been an
And,
investment from day one.
and what about other investment properties?
Well, I did some renovations. No, well, I extended on the property. I had to find something to do, but I should have. Well, we have other property, yes, but I haven't developed this area yet, the lots yet.
My next question for you: do you think that you have a distinct advantage of being a QS, and that has allowed you to you speak of building and flipping the house and buying and renovating the house just casually, and most of our other guests, uh, typically there is some trepidation in the process. You think you most certainly have an advantage as a QS, the fact that you manage your projects, you know about quantities, you know exactly what the cost of every nail, cost of every activity on the site.
I wouldn't say just being a QS. I would say because of my my experience and my knowledge in my construction knowledge has allowed me to do what I'm doing. The projects that I've worked on with, for instance, Gordon Belize and Partners, Mr. Gordon, what I've learned from my mentors, Leroy John and Mr. Lindell Gordon, as well as what I learned from working with the National Housing Corporation. I've been in the field for more than 20 years, so I guess I am
Which
aware.
which brings me to an important point. Both of us went to school in Jamaica. We probably still have friends in Jamaica, and we understand the different benefits that is it Jamaica Housing Scheme or Jamaica Housing Trust. I think that is a concession, whether it's a preferential rate that you get a grant for. The fact that you work with the National Housing, um, I guess, Commission, Council, Authority, and you left, is there anything you would like to see change there from in your area that you think would help it become more, I guess, more valuable and more of an asset to the country? I know in a number of our small developing countries in the Caribbean, Affordable housing is a big issue, a big ask. I did some research, and the last report showed for St. Lucia there was a latent demand of more than 3,000 people. 4,000, that's just civil servants. That's maybe 10 years ago, awaiting homes. Do you think do you think that there's an opportunity there? And what recommendations would you like to make, or you think could help change the ability of governments to really launch effective affordable housing schemes?
In terms of housing in St. Lucia, particularly the low income housing, there is a need for more of those. How do we provide it? We have a St. Lucia National Housing Corporation who has the mandate to provide low income housing in St. Lucia. But other agencies or entities who may be practicing the same thing which the St. Lucia National Housing Corporation should be doing. If the government of St. Lucia could put more capital or more subsidize the projects with by providing funding for St. Lucia National Housing Corporation to construct these buildings, I believe we will do better. What I've learned from working at the St. Lucia National Housing Corporation is that for the past few years, we've been inviting international companies to come in to finance housing. But we have our own contractors in St. Lucia who can do it. In 1999, about 1998, 1999, our own contractors were constructing this building. Our people don't believe in anything else but traditional houses built with blocks, mortar and blocks. Whether you want to come and introduce something that would mean wastage, like the not plywood, but the mortar boards or whatever, they will not purchase it. There are ways of reducing costs. There are ways of reducing costs, like for instance, the finishes. Instead of doing plastering, you can probably get a fair face. There are ways of minimizing costs on buildings. So if we the problem about St. Lucians too, our people in St. Lucia, they like big houses. We need to think about budget, how much someone can afford. Build houses based on what you think people can afford. So I would recommend that the necessary ministry the Ministry of Housing or the person responsible for St. Lucia National Housing Corporation, actually it is my former minister. I would recommend that houses are constructed to meet the budget of the persons who will benefit from it. Low income earners design the house and construct it to meet their budgets. Whether you have to change the finishes, design the house in a way that there won't be expensive elements like roof, do this. If we consider, we keep saying low income earners, but we have low income, we have to provide homes which low income owners afford. I'm not thinking about the middle class because the middle class and the higher class are okay. Our problem is with low income earners, with this typical civil servants who make probably 2,500 a month. We need to focus more on these people. For instance, in Barbados, if you go to Barbados, you'll see several developments where you have homes for low income persons. And you can differentiate it. You would know whether it's low income and middle income earners' homes. It's because of the design. So I think there is need for us to concentrate more on the low income persons.
So Tracy, as we begin, I guess to wrap up, a couple of things. A week ago, or 2 weeks ago, in St. Lucia, the new government launched an affordable housing scheme. Most importantly, the message that was clear um, is that we need to start rethinking what people see as home. Um, we live in well, there are condos, US, UK, other islands, and when we go there, we are comfortable there, by whether it's our relatives or our friends. But you're right. A lot of St. Lucians believe that they must have a house, standalone house, and this government made it clear that the way forward is more densely designed buildings, but maintaining a good quality of life and safety, and being aesthetically pleasing, attractive. So I think that's the way to go, in my opinion as well. As you said as well, other ways of reducing costs is making the roof a little more affordable by the design, as well as, and the good thing is that flat roof or shed roofs, which is actually that's my preference for design, is actually, a la mode. It's attractive. It's minimalist, and it's actually less expensive than the hip roof and all different types of more complex roofs. The finishings as well. You have a number of new options, both for tiles as well as laminate flooring. I like polished concrete. I haven't seen it much done. I know C.O. Williams had a version of it where you cast the floor and you have a buffer that just shines it, and I think they put a resin over it. So there are options, and I think there are a number of other islands that are ahead of the windwards with affordable housing schemes. The one in Barbados I saw, which was really cute, really nicely manicured. The houses are a little closer together, but each person had a standalone single story house. Now, my last question to you in closing, we don't have time to share with the audience that you actually, operated a bakery as part of your hustle and your creativity. The bread was good, I heard. Um, but anyone listening to this podcast or watching this podcast and interested in becoming a quantity surveyor, what advice do you have for them? Where should they start, and could they expect?
Okay. I know time is limited right now, but I would have loved to talk to ISSL and all the surveyors. There are so many areas where one can study, like ISSL. Our members we have valuation surveyors, quantity surveyors, land surveyors, building surveyors, as well as agricultural surveyors. And let me make sure I have everything. And of late, we also have professionals in the GIS field. And all of these surveyors are used or are required in the construction field. If it would be wise for someone to go on our site, the Institute of Surveyors Inc., to look at the various functions of all the disciplines. You can also arrange to have, if you are unclear about the definitions or the functions, this person can also contact one of our members to get more information. But before I go to answer your question, I would like to just say what the other building, all the surveyors, the functions, just quick. A building surveyor you to carry out inspection, like see if your electrical is okay, if your water is okay. They also do this inspection for like facility management, for repairs to a house, all of these like repairs. Our agricultural surveyors, what they do, they want someone, a client may approach them for like to advise them on how to plan their estate, and they would advise this person on to how to do it. If you have a pig farm, where to the pig, where to plant your coconuts and all of these things, an agricultural
Nice.
surveyor can do that. The valuation surveyor, I've told you about it, the quantity surveyor. So the GIS, that's the modern way. We have a GIS professionals who work with with the land survey department. The GIS is a modern system which is used to identify or locate structures, or it can be used for identify anything around the globe. There are systems in
I'll tell you
place.
something, Tracy. We
Mhm.
in I say in my other role in telecoms, GIS is very critical. It uses Google Map, Google Earth, and it tells us exactly where every single pole is, every single cabinet is. It's very useful, and for developments, I can see how valuable that role has become, and is becoming more and more critical.
Yes. So there are so many different disciplines that the school leavers can think of pursuing. The valuation surveyors do valuation of homes, anything, any structure, property. They also do real estate. If you rent in a shop, they can give you a value of the rental value. They can do several things as it pertains to estate properties. The quantity surveyor deals with the actual construction of buildings. They do cost management on these things. They give you the price of the structure. They give you the price to control it. They monitor the construction. They give you the final price, cost of the property, the structure afterwards. The land surveyors are the land people. They go on the land and they prepare maps of the property, where you purchase a property, they do maps of it to show the boundaries. There are also hydrological surveyors who do surveys on within the sea, water. They do surveys in water. So that's another thing. We don't have many of those here, but one can look into this aspect as well. And the building surveyors, actually, there are only two of them here. And they could be used for this purpose, but most of our building surveyors can do a lot more than building surveying. So it would just be an additional thing that one can think of doing. In terms of agriculture, I've already explained this to you. So I'm saying, if you need further information on the various services that our surveyors provide in St. Lucia, just visit the site and you will get all the information that you require. If you need additional information, leave a message. We will get back to you.
So at school, what would I need to do? Technical drawing, physics. What I need to do?
Well, in terms of quantity surveying, you would require, you need to know maths, advanced maths. Advanced maths is important. Then you need to have, well, English maths, Technical drawing is very important. It's always wise to know the construction, what it entails, and so on. So construction plays a very important role in this field on the whole. In all our surveying disciplines, you need to know construction. That's a requirement. You need to know economics, and you need to know sciences. You need to know hydraulics. Well, all these form part of the program. You need to know this. They form part of the units for the quantity surveying course, as well as land surveying. Land surveying, you need to know about surveying. In terms of valuation surveying, you need to know about how the properties, what the aspects that affect the value of properties. You need to know all this usual mathematics and so on. But I would advise persons to pursue courses in the various disciplines because there's a need, not just a need. Of late, you require to have a bachelor's degree in surveying. So I would encourage persons to do the courses.
Okay. All right, Miss Tracy Polius. Sorry, Tracy Lockter Polius. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you very much for that. A lot of information there. We might have to get you back to tell us about the story of that bakery. You've been listening to another episode of the Caribbean Property Investing Podcast. Once again, you can reach us on all of the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course at CaribbeanPropertyInvesting.com. Remember what we always say, everyone needs a place to live, so you might as well own yours. Until next time, see you.
Bank of St. Lucia Visa credit card for everyday people, everyday moments.
To ruminate, to create your ultimate living space. And at Quartz, you'll find what you need. Choose from our wide range of furniture, electronics, and accessories to complete your space. We're here and ready to assist. Give us a call to place your order. Shop online at shopquartz.com or visit us in store. So ruminate at Quartz, bringing value home.
Congratulations and thank you for tuning in to the Caribbean's first property investing podcast. We want to help Caribbean people create wealth and achieve financial freedom through property investing. Our show provides general advice based on personal experiences and is for educational purposes only. For more information, resources, and past episodes, visit us at CaribbeanPropertyInvesting.com. Remember to click the subscribe button so you never miss a show. Let's go.